Next on Currents News, a mega abortion clinic built in secret. Planned Parenthood set up a sham company to hide the plans. Now outrage is boiling. An exclusive report from Rome. Mike Pompeo tells the Vatican that religious persecution is only getting worse.
We first introduced you to a Catholic baker from Queens on Valentine's Day when she delivered tasty treats to the homeless. Now she's opening her own store. I'm Tim Harfman, and I'll have the sweet story coming up.
I hope that all the nations will meet in full equality.
St. John Paul II at the UN 40 years ago today, how his impact lives on. The news starts right now. Good evening, I'm Tamara Lane. It was built in secret and even had a code name. Now, one of the country's largest abortion clinics is about to open its doors. Planned Parenthood unveiling its mega facility today, built in Illinois near the Missouri border. Currents News' Emily Druby has the story.
For over a year, Planned Parenthood has been secretly building this abortion facility, using a sham company to leave no public trace of what it was doing. But now an 18,000 square foot mega clinic in Illinois has been revealed. A Planned Parenthood representative says it will make it easier for Missouri residents to get abortions. Right now, Missouri has some of the most stringent pro-life laws in the country.
Over half of our patients are coming from out of state. Most of those patients are coming from Missouri. And many of them are coming because they couldn't access care in their own state.
In about a month, when the doors open, it'll become one of the largest abortion facilities in the country. Reportedly, the number of women traveling to Illinois for an abortion has doubled since 2017. Some fear the number could climb with the new mega clinic. And pro-life advocates around the country are outraged, especially here in New York.
My heart sank, but we're not done. We're not giving up. This too shall pass, because evil never wins.
Julia Chitos, a board member at Queens Pregnancy Help Center, the Bridge to Life, says something must be done to stop the new clinic. The mega clinic is not far from their other operation in St. Louis, the last one still doing business anywhere in Missouri. It could be shut down. The state wants to yank its license after investigating issues involving patient care. Protecting the unborn is gaining a lot of support from many state legislatures. 300 bills restricting access to abortion have been introduced this year by state lawmakers, while 12 states have already passed abortion bans. But much like New York State, in Illinois, politicians have gone in the other direction, making it easier for pregnant women to get abortions.
One abortion affects all of us, you know. It's life, and this means that more and more babies will be taken from the wombs of their mother.
Fred Trabolsi, another New York pro-life advocate, says while this is happening in the Midwest, it affects everyone. The Illinois mega clinic, which cost $7 million to build, will start taking patients later this month. Emily Druby, Currents News.
One of the bills Emily talked about is on hold tonight. Georgia's heartbeat law has been temporarily blocked by a federal judge. The measure bans abortion once an infant's heartbeat is detected, about 6 weeks into a pregnancy. The judge ruling that a court battle over the bill should be allowed to play out. Georgia's Governor Brian Kemp, who signed the law, is saying, "We will continue to fight for the unborn and work to ensure all Georgians have the opportunity to live, grow, and prosper." Bernie Sanders' presidential campaign is also on hold tonight. He's in the hospital. The Democrat had a heart procedure for a blocked artery. Doctors inserted 2 stents after he complained of chest pains. Sanders' wife says the 78-year-old is doing really well, but campaign officials say all events are canceled until further notice. Over now to the Vatican. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is visiting, speaking out about religious freedom. All this is taking place in the shadow of a possible impeachment back at home. Melissa Butts has the latest from Rome.
U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo spoke today inside the Vatican. He regretted that religious persecution still exists in certain countries, and he even criticized by name some of those where people still suffer the most.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
The Vatican's Old Synod Hall hosted a U.S. Holy See collaborated event to promote religious freedom called Pathways to Human Dignity. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo flew to Rome to participate. The event tackled how to combat human trafficking and provide humanitarian assistance worldwide. Global ambassadors were present, including U.S. Ambassador to the Holy See, Callista Gingrich.
Secretary Pompeo's participation in this symposium illustrates the importance that the United States places on its diplomatic partnership with the Holy See.
In a brief address, Mike Pompeo lamented the 80% of mankind who lives in places where religious freedom is threatened.
Today, each of us must gird ourselves for another battle in defense of human dignity and religious freedom. The stakes today are arguably higher than they were even during the Cold War, because the threats to it are more diverse and more numerous.
Pompeo specifically called on Cuba, Iran, Pakistan, and Myanmar. He mentioned China when saying, when the state rules absolutely, God becomes an absolute threat to authority.
We humbly ask the Holy See to join us. We ask the representatives of all nations present here today to join us. What could be more powerful than our voices all together, calling for the freedom to worship God?
The event is part of the 35th anniversary year of diplomatic relations between the Vatican and the United States. Mike Pompeo is also scheduled to meet with Pope Francis privately on Thursday morning to see what more can be done to combat religious persecution around the world. At the Vatican, Melissa Butts, Currents News.
The Holy Father also spoke about the persecutions of Christians today during his general audience. He says it's been going on since the faith was born. Francis brought up the apostles, saying their evangelization was the result of persecution.
Nel libro degli Atti, la persecuzione appare come lo stato permanente della vita dei discepoli. In accordo con quanto detto da Gesù, se hanno perseguitato me, perseguiteranno anche voi.
The Holy Father also taught the pilgrims in St. Peter's Square a quick lesson on evangelization. The pontiff's advice: follow the guidance of the Holy Spirit. There's a new report tonight that the Vatican has apparently suspended 5 employees after raids on Vatican offices. The Holy See's press office is not commenting. The raids involved the Vatican Bank, with police seizing documents and other items from the Secretariat of State office and the Financial Watchdog Agency. The Holy See is being tight-lipped about these searches, saying the investigation stems from complaints about past operations at the Vatican Bank. A new twist tonight in the Capitol Hill battle over impeachment. A surprise briefing from the State Department about U.S. relations with Ukraine. Soonly Surf-Ati reports the latest from Washington.
Amid the impeachment inquiry drama, the State Department Inspector General shuttling to Capitol Hill today to give what congressional sources describe as an urgent and highly unusual briefing. The meeting happening behind closed doors with staffers from several key House and Senate committees, requested specifically by the IG to, quote, provide staff with copies of documents related to the State Department and Ukraine. That cryptic email coming just hours after Secretary of State Mike Pompeo attempted to prevent key witnesses from appearing on Capitol Hill.
They will be strengthening the case on obstruction if they behave that way.
House Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff today blasting the administration's stonewalling, warning that blocking witnesses and documents will be considered obstruction of Congress's duties and would only strengthen Democrats' hands if they draw up articles of impeachment.
Any effort by the Secretary, by the President, or anyone else to interfere with the Congress's ability to call before it relevant witnesses will be considered as evidence of obstruction of the lawful functions of Congress.
Schiff, now leading the impeachment inquiry, appearing today in a show of force with Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi.
This President of the United States is stooping to a level that is beneath the dignity of the Constitution of the United States.
As several key House committees are readying to issue subpoena to the White House Friday for documents related to President Trump's phone call with the Ukrainian president and the holding up of Ukrainian aid. House Oversight Chairman Elijah Cummings sending a memo today saying, quote, the White House's flagrant disregard of multiple voluntary requests for documents, combined with stark and urgent warnings from the Inspector General about the gravity of these allegations, have left us with no choice but to issue this subpoena. Adam Schiff making it clear they won't get drawn into another protracted fight.
We're not fooling around here, though. We don't want this to drag on months and months and months, which appears to be the administration's strategy.
Sunland Sarfati filing that report from Washington. President Trump is giving the green light to sell new missiles to Ukraine. The deal includes anti-tank weapons. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky specifically brought up the desire to buy more missiles from the U.S. during his now controversial phone call with President Trump. The weapons are seen as critical to Ukraine to help combat Russian-backed separatists. There are new tensions between North Korea and the U.S. after the communist regime fired off another missile today, the rocket taking flight only hours after Pyongyang and Washington agreed to resume nuclear talks. The launch took place off the northern coast and it flew for about 280 miles. What makes this one different from any other launch is that this missile was fired from underwater. That is heightening worries in Washington that Kim Jong-un could soon deploy a nuclear-capable submarine. With several missiles on board, that type of sub would represent a new and serious threat. Kim recently inspected it. The underwater launch is the first since he started talking with President Trump. There's a lot more news headed your way, including an update on a special Catholic baker.
For me, this has to work, because if this doesn't work, I'm going to have that same problem.
We first met Lisa Cadaguillo earlier this year. She was afraid of becoming homeless. Now she's opening up her own business. And the Pope's dream trip, the itinerary for Thailand and Japan, has been released. It's looking pretty busy. Plus a look back 40 years to this day. A saint was in New York with a message for the world. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number 718-517-3122. We'll be right back.
It's always been my biggest fear that I would wind up homeless myself.
When we first met Lisa Cadaguillo earlier this year, she was on a mission to help those less fortunate. Last Valentine's Day, she handed out heart-shaped cheesecake sandwiches to homeless men and women. She made hundreds of them and stored them in coolers. Now, as Currents News' Tim Harfman reports, Lisa Cadaguillo opened a bakery of her own.
Lisa Cadaguillo is busy whipping up sweet treats. Using her grandmother's cheesecake recipe, Lisa opened her own store 4 days ago. Before the new shop opened, her business was online, operating out of a rented kitchen. Now, she can't keep enough desserts on her shelves.
I thought I made enough for a couple days, but I pretty much sold out. My mom came in because she wanted to contribute, and I wouldn't let her buy anything because I needed stuff for the next day.
We first introduced you to Lisa on Valentine's Day when she delivered heart-shaped sandwiches to the homeless.
We're on the street here, so it's nice that someone come by and give us some food. She's an angel from above. She really is.
It's always been my biggest fear that I would wind up homeless myself. I just think it's very important that we help them.
Lisa still has those fears, but is working hard to keep her dream alive.
For me, this has to work, because if this doesn't work, I'm going to have that same problem.
Although she now has the shop, she's going back on the streets next Valentine's Day to give more love to people in need. She credits her Catholic roots and the priest at her parish of St. Fidela's Church in College Point, Queens, for her desire to help out.
Went to church twice a week, and they just instilled that in all the sermons that you should help.
Lisa sells 18 different flavors, like chocolate chip, and she has big plans on selling her sandwiches in supermarkets near you.
Whole Foods, Fairway, ShopRite. They're all very interested in bringing it in. That'll be going in the 3 main flavors, the plain, chocolate chip, and milk chocolate.
Eating flavored cheesecake sandwiched between 2 cookies, customer Jay Bomser approves.
It's nice, small. It's not like you buy a big cheesecake and you say, oh, I eat all that, I'm finished. It's a little portion, it's perfect.
A perfect portion made with love, a hint of Catholic values, and Grandma's secret cheesecake recipe. In Whitestone, Queens, Tim Harfman, Currents News.
Wheels will be up for Pope Francis come November, and his itinerary is packed. The Vatican just released the agenda for his upcoming trip to Thailand and Japan. The visit will include stops in Nagasaki and Hiroshima, where Pope Francis is expected to voice his opposition to nuclear weapons. Another highlight, in Thailand, Francis will meet the Supreme Buddhist leader. They'll talk about interfaith relations. The Holy Father will also make a stop in Bangkok, where he is likely to speak about poverty and human trafficking. St. John Paul II traveled to New York City for the first time in 1979. And 40 years ago today, he delivered a historic speech to the United Nations. He called on world leaders to make the planet a better place.
I hope that the state authorities, while respecting the just rights of each citizen, will enjoy the confidence of all for the common good.
The future saint also praised the United Nations for respecting the religious and moral dimensions of the problems facing the world. Joining us now is Paul Kengor, a political science professor at Pennsylvania's Grove City College. He's written an acclaimed book about John Paul's impact on the 20th century. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Tamara. Good with you.
So where were you on this day in 1979, and what was your reaction to the Pope's speech?
Well, I was 12 years old. It was a big deal. It was a big deal in America. He visited a bunch of major cities: Philadelphia, Washington, Chicago, New York. And this is amazing. People should think about this. Imagine 80,000 people in Yankee Stadium. 80,000 people in Yankee Stadium see John Paul II.
Well, let's listen to something else the Pope said at the UN.
The United Nations organization accepts and respects the religious and moral dimension of those human problems that the Church attends.
Could the same be said today about the United Nations, and what kind of reception did John Paul receive when he spoke in 1979?
He spoke about religious liberty, and what is undoubtedly something still applies today. And also, too, Tamara, this is important, it was the UN had declared the Year of the Child, 1979. So he took time there to, and I've got the exact quote, on them to respect the inherent dignity of each and every child, even before birth, from the moment of conception, and then throughout the years of infancy and youth. And he told the UN, he said, this is a fundamental task of the dignity of nations. They can respect the dignity of the human person.
Now, you've written that St. John Paul and President Ronald Reagan deserve a lot of credit for the collapse of the Soviet Union and the fall of the Berlin Wall. Why is that?
Reagan had wanted to meet with John Paul II ever since he saw footage of him going to Poland in June 1979. So they finally got together at the Vatican in June 1982, and they confided in one another, one-on-one, about an hour-long meeting at the Vatican Library, that they believed that God had spared their lives for a special purpose, which was to take on and defeat atheistic Soviet communism. They pledged themselves and their teams, Reagan put it, over the next several years to precisely that objective. And I don't think it's a coincidence that the Berlin Wall fell in 1989, in November 1989.
Now, so much has happened in the last 4 decades. If a pope addressed the UN today, what would the message be, you think?
I think that Pope Francis would probably get some of the same theme, religious liberty. That would probably stand out.
Paul Kengor, political science professor at Grove City College. Thanks so much for being with us.
It's good to be with you. Thank you very much.
Still to come on Currents News, the stories you need to read in the tablet. One of them is about a mass wedding. 5 couples walk down the aisle. And there's a big push to celebrate Latino trailblazers in America. People are calling for a museum in the nation's capital. You'll want to pick up the Tablet this week. The newspaper is packed with stories about Catholics in Brooklyn and Queens bringing their faith to life. A celebration of the great Archangel Michael that highlights immigrant culture. Also, a mass wedding mass where 5 couples tie the knot at the same time in the Catholic Church. Editor-in-Chief Jorge Dominguez is here to tell us all about them. Jorge, thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Tamara.
So let's start with, there's a Brooklyn parish long known for welcoming immigrants. There was a wonderful celebration that featured traditional culture. Tell us about it.
As many parishes in our diocese, in St. Finbar, they have now a new wave of immigrants from Guatemala. And each wave of immigrants brings their own devotions and own traditions. Sometimes, in Latin America, it's a particular advocation of the Virgin Mary. In this case, it is a particular devotion for the Archangel Michael. So they had this celebration Saturday, the whole day. It was cultural, it was religious, and you have a parish that has been rebirthed thanks to the presence of a new wave of immigrants. So it is a very interesting story. You should read it.
It sounds like that church is really one big family. Now, speaking of families, you have an unusual story in the Tablet about a group of siblings that decided to celebrate the sacrament of marriage together. Can you tell us, why did the group of siblings decide to do this?
This is at the same time a typical story and a very particular, unique story. Because from time to time we have in our parishes that some people, they got married but they were not close to the church, and they become close to the church and they decide to, to make their marriage sacramental in the church. But in this case, the unique thing about this is the 5 different siblings, their mother passed away, and they start thinking about their mother, they start thinking about how far from the church they were, and they wanted to get closer to the church, and then they decided to get married in the church. 5 of them. So it was the 5 weddings the same day at the same parish, 5 siblings. You have to read that one too.
Sounds like a touching story. So now, very quickly, Bishop DiMarzio is reminding parishioners that now is the right time to pray to the Rosary. Why?
October is the month of the Rosary, and Bishop DiMarzio in particular, he has always been the promoter of praying the Rosary. So he, in this column this week, he is reminding us why it is important that we pray the Rosary, especially during this month, but throughout the year.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for being with us, Jorge Dominguez, editor-in-chief of the Tablet. Thanks again.
Thank you for having me.
The Tablet needs your support to ensure that Catholic journalism will thrive well into the future. You can do so by subscribing to the Tablet so that it comes right to your mailbox. You'll save up to 55% by having it delivered to your home versus paying for it at church. Go to the website thetablet.org/home55 or call 877-883-8356. And please check out one of the latest features in the Tablet, the Our Diocesan Family page. That's where you can send in photos of your family receiving certain sacraments, such as baptism, First Communion, confirmation, and marriage. For more information and to submit your pictures, go to thetablet.org/ourdiocesanfamily. Finally tonight, there's new momentum for the construction of an American Latino museum in the nation's capital. Legendary Grammy Award winner Emilio Estefan is pushing the idea forward. His biggest goal right now is to get Congress to okay the money to build the museum. He envisions a structure that highlights Latino trailblazers who immigrated to the United States.
It's not going to be about us. It's going to be about people that come to this country and achieve their dreams.
Right now, there is a bipartisan bill in Congress called the American Latino Act. More than 200 lawmakers are sponsoring the measure. That is Currents News. I'm Tamara Lane. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.